President Cyril Ramaphosa is challenging the report that led to calls for his possible impeachment. The president wants the court to review and set aside the report, arguing that the independent panel used the wrong test when assessing the evidence before it. Ramaphosa says the panel should have applied a higher standard and first determined whether there was enough evidence for the impeachment process to continue.
In constitutional accountability, impeachment is the most severe form of accountability, and therefore the threshold is much higher. So the president is arguing that the Section 89 panel report, in recommending that he had more questions to answer based on that prima facie evidence, was flawed. So his point is that the decision to move into a Section 89 process was based on a flawed foundation in the first place. So because of that, the report should be set aside, and also any process that followed after that report.
The President of the Republic of South Africa.
The Constitution and the rules of the National Assembly prescribe that a sitting head of state may be removed from office by a two-thirds majority on the grounds of a serious violation of the Constitution or the law or serious misconduct.
It might not necessarily come down to the actual legal niceties of distinguishing between a serious matter versus a less serious offense in terms of the conduct of the president. So ultimately, there's a discretion here, and that is one has to say, has the threshold been passed? Is this serious? It might be misconduct, but is it serious? Is it something that deserves impeachment?
In papers before the Western Cape High Court, the head of state further submits that the panel ought to have sifted through the information and determine which part of it constitutes admissible evidence, but failed to do so. He cites the confidential Namibian police report pertaining to one of the suspects, Emmanuel David, and an audio clip of an interview with the suspect submitted by former State Security Agency head Arthur Fraser, who also blew the lid on the Phala Phala saga. Ramaphosa contends that the panel failed to mention how this particular information was obtained.
If the evidence that was used is seen to have been obtained illegally in that sense, it wouldn't be admissible because it wasn't obtained in a legal manner. So if that evidence is set aside, I think it also pokes holes into that Section 89 panel report, which could potentially, I'm not saying it would, but if the evidence that was used to make the recommendations from that report are seen to have been obtained illegally or not in a lawful manner, that would basically poke holes into that Section 89 panel report.
The high-stakes legal showdown now sets the president on a collision course with Parliament, which, in terms of its rules, ought to fulfill its constitutional mandate with the necessary urgency. But the president says it would be intolerable and a travesty for the process to continue in the national legislature in spite of his legal bid.
There's a Concord order, right, which basically said, if you remember from Chief Justice Maya's judgment, he said that this accountability cannot be postponed, and also the legislature or parliament cannot avoid its constitutional obligations. So based on that Concord order, the parliamentary process will proceed unless there's a court interdict putting a pause or a hold on their processes.
In its absence, however, it's full steam ahead for the impeachment committee, whose secretary has to call the fact-finding body's first meeting within 5 days after the National Assembly Speaker announced the names that would constitute the 31-member inquiry. For Newsroom Africa on Channel 405, I'm Zoleka Kotashe in Johannesburg.